Hello friends, my name is Ekaterina Sergienko and I am a Western astrologer. Today I suggest we talk about an important event ahead of the eclipse corridor. There will be a separate video about the eclipse corridor, but today I want to discuss the topic of the new moon. The new moon, which will be in the sign of Virgo on August 23rd. And this is a moment, yes, when we will have to reconsider, because a new moon is always the beginning of something new, right? In other words, it's a moment when we'll have to reconsider our habits, because the sign of Virgo is precisely responsible for routine, for our habits, for our attitude toward health, work in general, for everyday responsibilities, and for what you devote your time to each day. And there's one nuance to this new moon. It will form a square with Uranus. Yes, so this isn't just like another new moon. It's a bit of a tense new moon. And now let's figure out why. Uranus, I'll say right away, yes, this is very important information. It's not about revolutions or riots, as pop astrology likes to claim, and it's not chaos for the sake of chaos. In other words, this planet doesn't just do whatever it wants. It's important to understand that. But in this new moon, Uranus will be signaling and symbolizing that the old system you've been used to relying on no longer works. Yes, you'll be shown events, you'll encounter people, through people, yes, certain situations, even through your body. You'll be shown that it's time for a change, that the time for renewal has come. You could even say a reset. So this is about new habits, introducing something new. It's very helpful if you really want to get rid of something for good or to learn something new. Then this is a wonderful time to start, specifically during this new moon. So this truly means that if you introduce a new beneficial habit or effectively get rid of an old detrimental one during this significant new moon, the ultimate result will be good, promising, and let's say truly long-lasting. Yes, so if you haven't been able to do something before, any habit at all, whether it's one you don't like or one you want to adopt but just couldn't manage, this is a perfect time to make it happen. And today I'll talk about how Uranus will affect us, what to expect in terms of the body, finances, relationships, and thoughts. And I'll give a brief breakdown by houses so you can see exactly where this new moon will be activated for you. Let's start by breaking down the concept of a new moon. What is it exactly? A new moon is a point of renewal, a point of reset, and Uranus is our planet of resets. So here it's like a reset and a renewal, two in one. A new moon is the time when the old moon fades away and the new one is just beginning to form. In other words, it's the very process of something coming into being. That is, it's when we plant certain seeds, but they only sprout in the soil we've prepared, right? And it needs time to grow. So it's the planting of something, right? These can be very emotional days as well, when it's unclear what's happening, when your mood is uncertain, with some ups and downs. That's absolutely normal because the new moon itself is something unstable. That's exactly why we don't make wishes during the new moon itself, because it's a moment when there's an imbalance in nature, when it's still unclear what will happen, unclear which direction things will go. So if you want to make a wish, if you have this desire to start something, you should begin not on the new moon itself, but the next day. Yes, that's a kind of golden rule. And the sign of Virgo is the sign of order, structure, and analysis. Here, it's important not to confuse this with manic control. It's not about every jar being color coordinated and in its exact place. It's about functional systems that are already in place. That is, in nutrition, in routine, in work, in finances as well, yes. But mainly, of course, this concerns routine and one's attitude toward their health. Virgo is the sign that always asks, how can I do something more efficiently, better for myself? How can I eliminate the chaos that's happening? If you realize that something is happening in your life that is throwing you off balance, this new moon will highlight these moments so that you can finally figure out where you need to clear out the old, what no longer works, and optimize your processes anew. But during this new moon, the usual logic of I'll get rid of the unnecessary and put things in order won't quite work. Why? Well, because of Uranus. In astrology, Uranus is a very distorted planet. This is actually very far from the interpretations you might know. It's not about war, it's not about revolutions, as people often like to write. Uranus is pure analysis, it's distance, it's the starry sky, it's the cold cosmos, it's an outside perspective and an overall understanding of the situation. Yes, that is, under Uranus, the situation should always be viewed as if from a third-party perspective. In other words, when you step outside of the situation and evaluate what's happening as if through someone else's eyes, you step beyond emotions, especially. That's why if this new moon highlights certain moments for you, they will be very emotional. And you'll need to step beyond those emotions and look at the situation from a different perspective. And only then will you be able to solve a particular problem. So observe what happens from August 21st to August 25th. And the square aspect to the new moon is quite a tense moment. A nervous impulse, yes, it can add a sense of tension during these days, like a signal that says, I can't go on like this anymore, this can't continue, this can't go on this way any longer. So situations and thoughts like these may come up. And everything that you do automatically in Virgo-related areas, work, health, daily routines, habits, may malfunction for a while. Yes, even technology might break down. It's a bit like a retrograde Mercury phase, yes, something like that. If you've been putting off treatment for an illness for a long time, for example, or delaying something else, the situation may get worse. If you've been working on autopilot, your usual schedule might get disrupted, yes. If you need to change something in the system, if you need a new system and something you wanted falls through, if your plans get disrupted, it's kind of a signal that you need to reconsider something, yes. So if everything is fine, nothing will fall apart. But if something you had planned falls through on these days, that's a clear signal that something is wrong, yes. And if, for example, you've been sticking to a strict schedule, planning your life, doing everything on autopilot like that, all of that can also fall apart because you don't need to control everything everywhere, yes. If you tend to be overly controlling, in this case, it can even be harmful, yes. So pay attention to that as well. So how can we feel this in our bodies? Yes, what might happen? Virgo is responsible for health in general, yes. That's why here you might experience nervous breakdowns, psychosomatic symptoms, blood pressure spikes, or digestive issues, especially for those who live in a state of constant control, yes. If you're always keeping yourself in check, your body will definitely let you know about it. Yes, it will send you a kind of signal so that you pay attention. For example, you wanted to start some perfect diet, but due to stress, it falls apart, right? Your schedule that you had set up just falls apart, yes. So something's off, yes, you're doing something wrong. This could very well be a signal that it's time to stop pushing yourself so hard, yes. So some people will need a system, while others, on the contrary, will need to let go of the system, right? Here, you really need to look at the context of your own life, so to speak. But the fact that you need a new approach to self-care is undeniable. At work and in your daily routine, you might notice that Virgo in general is about order. Uranus is about certain patterns, yes, and the idea that I work according to a scheme, right? That pattern might break, meaning your usual way of spending time at work, for example, or the way you're used to organizing your work routine, it could all collapse. Or if, for example, you are constantly in chaos, that chaos will intensify so that you are forced to finally build a system, right? So for those who have a rigid system, it might break. And for those who don't have any system at all, one should be added, yes. And you'll start to feel really uncomfortable in that situation, and you'll want to implement a system yourself. Some people might have their tasks change, others might have their schedule change, but this is not a catastrophe. It's simply a chance to get out of a dead end, right? The main thing is not to get too emotionally shaken and to remember that a Uranus square is the lack of an opportunity to step outside the situation, to step outside your emotions and to look at the situation from the outside. An outside perspective is always unemotional and always seems detached. In our minds, that is, in our thoughts, we might be very critical of ourselves and others during this period. But a Uranus square is always a reminder that criticism without concrete action, and in general blowing up over little things emotionally, doesn't actually lead to growth. And don't get stuck in your thoughts, especially negative ones. Don't fuel panic and fears. Look for new solutions in the situations and events that are happening. As for money, Virgo likes to plan and save. But with Uranus, there can be a paradox, right? Like first I save money by skipping coffee, and then suddenly I buy myself a new laptop for $1,000. That's normal. Uranus can test your flexibility. And the main insight here is not to hold on to money out of fear, but also not to blow it on emotional purchases. So if you suddenly want something new, you really need to think about how you're going to use this new thing, right? It's about making sure that whatever you buy should serve you. It absolutely needs to be put to practical use, because if you buy something on impulse, it will just end up lying around, or it will break very quickly or get lost. In short, it's money thrown away. It's better to think about what's actually happening with your money, and maybe you need some new ways to earn, some new investments, some new technologies. Maybe it's time to implement artificial intelligence in your work, and so on. In other words, take a look at what's happening with your finances overall right now. What about relationships? If you're in a couple, if you're in a relationship, irritation might come up about your partner not being the way you'd like them to be. Or on the contrary, you might feel a desire to refresh things, to update, to change the relationship dynamic. And problems will arise where everything is done as usual, on autopilot, where things have already become lifeless. The situation calls for renewal. If you're not in a relationship, this is a chance to reconsider who you're looking for and why. Questions may come up like, do I even want a relationship? Or do I just want the image of one? Or is it just someone else's expectation that I should have one? In other words, a reassessment is needed. What kind of relationship do you want? With whom? And why do you even need it? And overall, this isn't really about breakups, if you're in a couple, for example, but more about refreshing your approach, the way you're used to interacting. It's very important, if you feel stagnation in your relationship, to bring in something new, something that will refresh things and give your relationship a new turn. And all of this is done through conversations, through analyzing and discussing the situation. The main thing that's important to do is to stop waiting for perfect conditions. Of course, they don't actually exist for anything, really. If you've wanted to try something, now's the time. Let go of perfectionism, this idea of either it's perfect or not at all. If I don't know how to do it well, then I won't do anything at all. That's not how it works, because this new moon can push you toward real steps, real actions. And here you need to calculate all the risks, but not get lost in all sorts of complicated scenarios or distant possibilities. How should it be done? Yes. Over-planning for the future in such an extensive manner can actually lead you into unnecessary fears and anxieties instead. If you truly realize that the current situation is genuinely leading to the beginning of something entirely new and significant, it's incredibly important to thoughtfully consider how to effectively implement it through the simplest, most minimal, and easily manageable steps possible. Okay. And make sure you maintain a calm state of mind, because truly good and sound decisions only ever come about when you are feeling calm and composed. And of course, what else is there to say? You need to test things out in practice. It's important to know in which house of your natal chart this new moon is occurring. What exactly will it affect? To determine this, you need to look at your natal chart and see which house the beginning of the sign of Virgo falls into. That's where this new moon will be. That's where you should expect a restructuring to begin, a new system to start, and where things might malfunction. If it's in the first house on the ascendant, it could relate to your body, your appearance, your image. This is about new approaches to health and self-care. If it's the second house, that's finances, for example, revising your budget, finding new sources of income, or making an emotional purchase you shouldn't make. The third house is about learning and communication. Maybe you'll start learning something new or change your style of communication, for example, yes? Or you might go on some long trip somewhere. The fourth house is everything related to family, like, for example, new rules at home, renovations, upgrading appliances, or even moving somewhere. The fifth house is our business, children, our creations, everything we do and create. This could also mean new hobbies, yes. It could be a new approach to parenting, a reassessment of how you raise your children, or a new strategy for running your business, yes. The sixth house is work and health. This could mean a new routine or healthy habits. It's a good time to introduce changes, switch up your tasks, or update your responsibilities at work. The seventh house is about partnership, everything related to clients and relationships. So this could be a new format for your relationship, or perhaps an honest conversation that opens up new horizons in your relationship. It could also be a new acquaintance with someone. This can happen in both the fifth and the seventh house. The eighth house is about other people's resources. So this could involve resolving issues related to loans, investments, or repaying debts, for example. The ninth house is about worldview and learning. That is, there might be a new perspective or a situation may arise that requires you to look at life differently, to change your plans, yes. You might start some new studies or travel somewhere. The 10th house covers everything related to career, meaning some kind of renewal at work, a new work format, or new interactions with management, for example. Some unexpected opportunities may also arise. The 11th house is about your environment, projects, everything related to groups, social networks, and blogging. This could mean new people in your circle, some new ideas, or new group projects. The 12th house covers everything related to the psyche and our subconscious. You might experience emotional ups and downs, or there could be some kind of release, liberation from your old patterns. Yes, at first there might be some anxiety, but then comes letting go of the situation or seeking silence when you just want to be alone with yourself. And most importantly, this new moon is not about chaos at all. It might create some kind of chaotic situation, but it's important to stabilize yourself at that moment, yes. Be honest with yourself, yes. Don't step on the very same rake you've previously stepped on before, yes. This is fundamentally about recurring events that consistently demand new and different behavior from you, a completely new way of acting and fresh reactions. So you can ask yourself these questions. What in my life is no longer working right now? Where am I getting stuck in a routine? What am I ready to try in a new way? And where do I maybe need some kind of system where everything has already fallen apart and nothing makes sense anymore? And remember, it's important to stop trying to fix the old, because that's actually the first step toward freedom. When we stop getting stuck in old patterns and move toward new experiences, but with a cool head, without emotions, and in a calm, confident state. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. And there will also be a link to my Instagram channel in the description, yes. And if you have any questions, be sure to ask them.